Chapter 1. The Offering. The throne room didn't welcome visitors. It devoured them. Lyra felt it the moment the towering double doors groaned open. The air turned razor-sharp, expectant, hostile. Black marble columns stretched toward a vaulted ceiling like the ribs of some ancient beast. Oil paintings of stern-faced men in military dress lined the walls, their eyes following her wheelchair with the judgment of ghosts who'd never known mercy. The whispers started immediately, silk rustling, champagne glasses pausing mid-sip, voices dipping into that particular register of cruelty disguised as concern. Behind her, Lyra's father's hands trembled on the wheelchair handles. The vibration travelled through the wooden frame, up her spine, settling in her teeth. She clenched her jaw and lifted her chin. Don't give them the satisfaction. Her dress was plain linen, no beading, no embroidery. Her blanket was hand-woven wool, fraying at the edges. Her dark hair hung in a simple braid, with no ribbon, no ornament. She looked exactly like what she was, a girl from a defeated territory, offered up like livestock to seal a treaty. She refused to apologize for it. A woman in a crimson gown leaned toward her companion, stage whispering behind jeweled fingers. "This is what Silverlake sends as an offering." Muffled laughter rippled through the crowd like poison in water. Lyra's knuckles whitened where they gripped the blanket in her lap, but her face remained carved from stone. Stillness was her only armor here. Her father stopped 10 paces from the raised platform, his voice cracking when he spoke. President Kael Blackwood. "We come bearing an offering of peace. My daughter, Lyra of Silverlake." The name landed in the cavernous room and sank like lead. More laughter, soft, vicious, wrapped in the rustle of expensive fabric and clinking crystal. Lyra kept her eyes forward, not down. Never down. Forward. Movement on the dais yanked every eye in the room. Kael Blackwood rose from his seat, not a throne exactly, but close enough. A massive leather chair flanked by flags, positioned at the room's power center. He didn't dress like the others. No three-piece suit, no designer tie. Just a white dress shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with faint scars. His dark hair was slightly too long, pushed back carelessly. His jaw could have been cut from granite. He looked like a man who'd built an empire with his bare hands, and when his pale grey eyes swept the room, conversations died mid-sentence. His gaze found Lyra. Not her wheelchair, not her blanket, not her plain dress or unadorned hair. Her eyes. Something in Lyra's chest, something that had been vibrating with anxiety all morning, went utterly still. Kael descended the platform stairs. Each footfall echoed like a drumbeat. Nobles parted without thinking, creating a path, their champagne flutes frozen halfway to painted lips. He stopped directly in front of her father, and then, while the entire ballroom held its breath, Kael Blackwood dropped to one knee. Gasps erupted like breaking glass. Lyra's heart slammed against her ribs. Heat crawled up her neck, not embarrassment, something else, something she didn't have a name for. Kael looked at her, not past her, not through her. At her. Like he was searching for something specific and wouldn't move until he found it. His expression gave away nothing. But his eyes were listening. After a long, suspended moment, he rose fluidly. Without a word, without asking permission, he reached past her stunned father and took hold of the wheelchair handles. Lyra's breath caught. Kael turned her chair himself and began pushing it forward, not up onto the platform, not tucked away in a corner somewhere. He positioned her at the front of the assembly, beside the dais where every noble could see her clearly. A place of visibility. A place of power. He rested one hand on the back of her chair, protective, claiming, unmistakable. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. controlled. The kind of quiet that made people lean in or shut up. The formal ceremony begins at sunset. He wasn't addressing Lyra. He was addressing them. The room full of predators in designer clothes. Until then, Lady Lyra is under my personal protection. Are we understood? No one dared answer. No one dared laugh. Kael left without another word, his footsteps echoing into silence. For the first time since entering the throne room, Lyra felt something other than dread. She felt seen. Chapter 2. The first night. The guest suite was a cage wrapped in velvet. Lyra sat by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights flicker on as twilight deepened. Outside, people moved freely, walking, laughing, living. Normal people with normal problems. Inside, she was trapped in a beautiful room that felt like a museum exhibit. The door opened without a knock. A maid entered, young, efficient, eyes skating over Lyra like she was furniture that needed dusting. She dropped fresh linens onto the bed with more force than necessary. "Dinner is served in the main hall," the maid said crisply. "Someone will escort you down." Her gaze flicked to the wheelchair, lingered for a fraction of a second, then darted away like she'd looked at something obscene. "There's a commode under the bed if you need it during the night. Can you manage on your own?" The question landed like a slap. "Yes," Lyra said evenly. "Good." The maid smoothed her apron with sharp, disapproving movements. "You'll adjust eventually. Everyone does." The door clicked shut. Lyra sat in the growing darkness, hands clenched in her lap, until heavy footsteps in the hallway. Not the maid. Someone bigger. The door opened, and the maid appeared again, this time pressing herself flat against the wall, eyes down, as President Kael Blackwood filled the doorway. He carried a wooden tray balanced in one hand, soup steaming in a ceramic bowl, fresh bread, a cup of something that smelled like honey and herbs. He crossed the room and set it on the table beside her without ceremony. "You're cold," he said. A statement, not a question. Before Lyra could respond, he walked to the ornate fireplace, unlit despite the chill in the air, and crouched down. His hands moved with surprising familiarity, arranging kindling, striking a match, coaxing flame from wood. "You could have ordered someone to do that," Lyra said quietly. "They should have done it before you arrived." His voice was flat, final. The fire caught, orange light spilling across his profile. "Don't punish them," Lyra said suddenly. "The maid, the staff. Punishing them for gossip won't change how people see me." Kael looked at her over his shoulder, that expression again, the one that made her feel like he was seeing past skin and bone into something deeper. "No," he agreed, "but it'll teach them consequences." He stood, brushing ash from his hands. "Eat. The ceremony tomorrow will be long." Lyra looked at the soup, at him. Is this kindness or control? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "It's survival. I don't let people under my roof starve. That includes you." He moved toward the door. "Kael." He stopped, didn't turn. "Thank you," she said. The words felt foreign in her mouth. A pause. Then, "Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen what you're walking into." The door closed behind him. Lyra picked up the soup bowl. The heat seeped into her cold fingers, warming something deeper than just her hands. She took the first spoonful. It tasted like the first safe thing she'd had in months. A single tear tracked down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away, just sat by the fire Kael had built with his own hands, and let herself feel warm. Chapter 3. Court of Whispers. The palace gardens were designed for lovers' strolls and diplomatic power walks, not for wheels. Lyra's arms burned as she navigated uneven cobblestones, her palms stinging with each jarring bump. Sweat gathered at her temples despite the cool morning air. But she pushed forward anyway, desperate for space that didn't smell like pity and expensive perfume. Under the wisteria arch, she finally stopped. Purple petals filtered the sunlight. The air smelled like lavender and possibility. Her shoulders dropped an inch. For 30 blissful seconds, she was alone. Then voices drifted over the hedge, sharp, amused, careless. "I still can't believe Silverlake sent her." Desperation makes people do embarrassing things. What could she possibly offer the president? She can't even walk. A titter of laughter, refined, poisonous, designed to cut. Lyra's hands froze on the wheel rims, her throat closed. "Shh, lower your voice. Someone might hear." The voices cut off mid-sentence, not because they stopped talking, because a shadow fell across the garden path. Kael. He didn't look at Lyra. Not yet. His pale eyes were fixed on the direction the voices had come from, his expression carved from ice. One word. Leave. The sound of expensive heels on stone, rapid, retreating. Silk rustling in panicked departure. Within seconds, the garden was empty except for the two of them. Kael moved to the stone bench beside her wheelchair. He sat, not hovering, not crowding, just there. Solid. Present. A wall between her and the world. For a long moment, neither spoke. "They don't know any better," he finally said. Lyra stared at the purple petals scattered on the cobblestones. Hear something enough times, you start believing it's true. Only if you let them decide what truth is. A bitter laugh escaped her. Easy for someone like you to say. He turned his head, studying her profile. You didn't break in that throne room yesterday. You didn't give them the satisfaction. That wasn't strength, she murmured. That was survival instinct. There's no difference. His voice was matter of fact. Survival is strength. Everything else is performance. The words settled into her chest like stones in still water, heavy, grounding. After a moment, Lyra gripped her wheels and turned back toward the palace. Kael stood, matching her pace without comment. He didn't offer to push. He didn't offer hollow comfort. He just walked beside her, a silent presence that somehow made the path feel less impossible. Chapter 4. The map room. Kael hated being outsmarted by geography. The map room was chaos, satellite images covering every surface, red zones marking disappearances, timeline reports scattered like evidence at a crime scene. 3 security teams had vanished in the eastern sector over 2 weeks. No bodies, no ransom demands, no explanation. His best analysts were stumped. It was making him furious. He braced both hands on the table, glaring at topographic maps like they'd personally insulted him. The door opened. A guard wheeled Lyra inside. "Leave us," Kael said without looking up. The door closed. Lyra sat quietly for a moment, her eyes moving across the maps with a focus that Kael recognized, the look of someone thinking, not just observing. "You're looking in the wrong sector," she said softly. Kyle's head snapped up. "What?" She wheeled closer to the table. "May I?" He handed her a red marker. Lyra leaned forward, her hand steady, and began circling areas on the map that his team had dismissed as impassable. Dry riverbeds, narrow ravines, cliff-shadowed routes. "They're using these," she said, tapping 3 locations. "Your surveillance drones are calibrated for standard patrol routes, but at sunset, the angle of light off these cliff faces creates a blind spot. 15 minutes. That's all they need." She drew connecting lines. "They're not using roads. They're using terrain most people assume is inaccessible." Kael stared at the map. His entire security team had been analysing this for weeks. She'd solved it in under 2 minutes. "You have training," he said slowly. Not a question. "I was Silverlake's terrain analyst," she said. "Before—" She gestured vaguely at her legs. Kael moved behind her chair, studying the routes she'd marked. "Your father said it was an accident. Horseback riding." Lyra's hands stilled. A long silence. Then, quietly, "It wasn't." Kael went very still. She told him everything. The capture, the interrogation. The calculated brutality designed to break her spirit along with her spine, the refusal to break. When she finished, her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly in her lap. Kael moved around the table and lowered himself until his eyes were level with hers. "You're not broken," he said, each word deliberate. "They failed. That's not the same as you being less." Lyra met his gaze. For the first time since arriving, she didn't guard herself. And Kael felt something shift in his chest, something protective and possessive and dangerously close to admiration. He didn't name it, not yet, but he felt it all the same. Chapter 5. Montage of Discovery. A. The Library. The library stretched 3 stories high, spiral staircases connecting galleries lined with ancient texts. Master Tobin, the palace archivist, had been using the same navigation charts for 50 years. Lyra proved them wrong in under an hour. "The Northern Crown constellation," she said, finger tracing the star chart, "has shifted 3 degrees east since this was drawn. Any ship using this during storm season would run aground here," she tapped the jagged coastline, "instead of reaching safe harbour here." Master Tobin removed his spectacles with shaking hands. "How could you possibly know? When you can't travel far physically, you learn to navigate by stars instead." From the doorway, Kael leaned against the frame, arms crossed, watching her explain celestial drift to a man 3 times her age. That smile played at his lips again, the one he couldn't quite suppress. Pride. Pure, unfiltered pride. Khas, the stables. The screaming started before Lyra reached the stable yard. Not human, horse. Stormbreaker, the grey warhorse who'd saved 3 soldiers in battle, was trapped in trauma-fueled panic. Blood streaked his shoulder from a poorly treated wound. The stable master couldn't get near him. "We'll have to put him down," someone said grimly. "No." Kael's voice cut through the chaos. Then Lyra's wheelchair appeared at the stall entrance. She opened the door. Everyone gasped, but she didn't enter. Just sat there, hands in her lap, and began to hum, low, melodic, ancient. "It hurts, doesn't it?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Too many hands. Too much noise. You just want the pain to stop." The horse's ears flickered forward. "I understand," she continued. "When I was hurt, everyone tried to fix me all at once. All I wanted was for them to stop, to let me breathe." Stormbreaker took a tentative step, then another. His muzzle extended toward her. "I can't walk to you," Lyra said softly. "You have to come to me." The warhorse that had thrown 3 men pressed his nose into her palm, gentle, asking permission. Behind her, Kael stood frozen, watching a woman in a wheelchair calm a battle-traumatized animal through nothing but empathy and patience. She wasn't just intelligent, she was extraordinary. C. Shared dinners. The formal dining hall was abandoned after the first week. Now they ate in Kael's private study, smaller, warmer, designed for strategy sessions rather than state dinners. Someone had adjusted the table height without being asked. Lyra suspected Kael. Tonight he carried both plates himself, waving off servants. "The Eastern Valley Trade Agreement," he started, "is going to collapse if you maintain those tariff rates," Lyra interrupted, taking a bite of roasted vegetables. "They'll just reroute through northern passes. You'll lose revenue and diplomatic goodwill." Kael's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "I'm protecting domestic producers. You're protecting pride. Your domestic quality already outcompetes them. Lower the tariffs, make the official route more attractive than smuggling, and you'll triple legitimate trade volume within 6 months." He stared at her. She stared back, eyebrow raised. "You're absolutely right," he said finally. "I know." The corner of his mouth twitched. "Most people don't interrupt me during policy discussions. Most people are terrified of you." "And you're not?" Lyra considered. "You built me a fire. Hard to be terrified of someone who kneels to arrange kindling. Something warm flickered in his expression. They debated economics until the candles burned low, her challenging his assumptions, him testing her logic. Somewhere around the second hour, Lyra made a dry observation about the Eastern Valley Guildmaster having the strategic vision of a concussed squirrel. Kael laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A real laugh, head tipped back, unguarded and genuine. The sound filled the room like light pouring into darkness. Lyra froze, fork suspended midair, watching him with something dangerously close to wonder. When he recovered, still grinning, he found her staring. What? Nothing, she said quickly, but her smile lingered. Just nothing. The candles guttered. Neither moved to leave. D. The gift, Lyra was updating supply routes when Kael entered the map room carrying something wrapped in cloth. Don't you have a country to run? She asked without looking up. Delegated? I have something for you. That made her look up. He set the package on the table. Open it. Inside was a book, ancient leather-worn, pages filled with hand-drawn battle formations and strategic analysis. The Arte of War by Master Vincenzo. This is over 200 years old, Lyra breathed. Kael, this belongs in a vault. It belongs with someone who'll actually use it, he crouched beside her chair. But that's not the real gift. He produced a leather case, slender, expertly crafted, with multiple pockets and compartments. With practiced ease, he attached it to her wheelchair's armrest. For your charcoal, measuring tools, rolled parchment, he explained, demonstrating each pocket. This one's waterproof. And this one, he pulled out a slightly larger compartment, for whatever else you need. Lyra ran her fingers over the leather. No jewels, no ornamentation, just flawless craftsmanship and perfect functionality. You made my chair better, she said quietly, instead of trying to replace it. Why would I replace it? Kael looked genuinely confused. It's how you move. I just wanted you to move more effectively. Her throat tightened. No one's ever given me tools before. They give sympathy, prayers, things to make confinement comfortable. Her fingers trembled on the leather. You give me ways to be more dangerous. Because that's what you are. Simple, factual, dangerous, brilliant, more valuable than half my cabinet. She looked up at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. Thank you, she whispered. Truly. He stood, clearing his throat. Now show me those supply routes. I have a meeting in 30 minutes and I want to prove someone wrong with proper citations. She laughed through the tears threatening to fall. E-journal entry. Late that night, Lyra sat in her chambers, the leather case resting on her desk, as she refilled its compartments. Her journal lay open, her hand moved across the page. I came here a prisoner of war. A token worth less than the parchment that wrote the treaty. He treats me as a fellow general. He asks my opinion and implements my suggestions. He listens when I speak. He made my chair more functional instead of trying to fix me. I don't know what to do with this kindness. It feels dangerous, like something that could be taken away, leaving me more shattered than before. But perhaps that's why I must accept it. Refusing it out of fear means they've won. The ones who broke me. The ones who sent me here, expecting me to wither. I will not wither. I will not. Her hand paused, then added one final line. He laughed today. I made him laugh. I didn't know such a small victory could feel so much like hope. She closed the journal, fingers resting on the cover. Outside her window, light still burned in the map room. Neither of them sleeping much these days. Too much work, too much unexpected connection growing in the spaces between strategies and shared meals. Chapter 6. Celine's Poison. The harvest feast filled the grand ballroom with golden light and barely concealed ambition. Lyra sat at the high table, the seat of honour at Kael's right hand. She wore deep green tonight, simple but elegant, the leather case still mounted on her wheelchair arm. A small act of defiance. I am a strategist, not an ornament. The hall buzzed with hundreds of conversations, clinking crystal, the string quartet no one could hear over the noise. Kael leaned toward her. 3 more courses. Can you survive it? I've survived worse. We can leave early if you want. And confirm what they all think, that I'm too fragile. She shook her head. I'll endure. You don't have to endure everything, Lyra. The way he said her name, soft, private, just for her, made something flutter in her chest. Down the table, Lady Selene held court among younger nobles, her crimson dress cut low, her blonde hair in perfect curls. Her laugh rang out too loud, too often. She'd been working through the wine since the 2nd course. Drunk, or performing drunk. Her eyes kept sliding toward the high table, toward Kael, toward Lyra, each glance sharp as thrown knives. Another course arrived, glazed duck, the skin crackling. Lyra took a small portion, appetite suppressed by the weight of being watched. More wine, Selene's voice carried. A servant hurried over, filling her glass to the brim. She raised it high. To President Blackwood's health, to his generosity. The emphasis on the last word dripped venom. Several courtiers exchanged uncomfortable glances. Kael's hand tightened on his glass. Selena, just a toast. She stood, swaying slightly. I simply must congratulate our president on his charitable works. She started walking, not toward the dance floor, toward the high table. Selene, Kael's voice dropped to warning. Sit down. Just a proper toast. Her eyes were bright, focused, calculating despite the performance. To honor our gracious president and his guest. Guest, not partner, not lady, guest. Lyra's fingers found the armrest, knuckles white. Kael stood. The ballroom noticed. Conversations stuttered and died. I said sit. Of course, Mr. President, I just wanted to— Oh! It happened so fast. Selena's heel caught. On nothing, on air, on a perfectly choreographed stumble. She pitched forward, arms windmilling, red wine arcing from her glass like thrown blood. It hit Lyra's lap, soaked into the wool blanket, spread like a wound. Cold. Shocking. Humiliating. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Selene caught herself on the table's edge, breathing hard, eyes wide with false horror. Oh no, I'm so clumsy. Let me help. Her hand reached toward Lyra, toward the stain. Let me help the poor— You will not touch her. Kael's voice was lethal. Quiet. Absolute. The ballroom became a tomb. He moved before the words finished echoing. Not toward Selene, toward Lyra. His hands went to the clasp of his jacket, the presidential seal embroidered in the silver thread, worth more than most people earned in a year. He removed it with swift, decisive movements. And then, with a gentleness that contradicted every hard angle of his body, he draped it over Lyra's lap, covered the wine-stained blanket completely, tucked the edges carefully, his hands steady, his focus absolute. The gesture was devastating, intimate, political, a public declaration more binding than any contract. She is mine, under my protection, worth more than all of you combined. The ballroom held its collective breath. Kael straightened, turned, faced Selene. She was still frozen, hand outstretched, the false concern cracking on her face like bad paint. You are confined to your quarters. Each word a stone. Indefinitely. Mr. President, it was an accident. I didn't mean— Get out! Selene's mouth worked silently. Her face drained from flushed to white. Security was already moving. They flanked her, not touching, but making their purpose clear. She backed away, stumbling for real now, looking to her allies for support, finding only averted eyes and sudden fascination with dinner plates. No one would defend her. No one dared. The doors closed behind her with a boom that echoed like a coffin lid. Kael didn't watch her go. He turned back to the assembled crowd, hand resting on Lyra's chair. Protective, possessive, unmistakable. When he spoke, his voice was conversational, almost pleasant, which somehow made it more terrifying. "I've been patient," he let the words settle. "I've overlooked whispers, dismissed mockery as ignorance." His hand tightened slightly on the chair. "That patience is gone." He scanned the ballroom, made eye contact with specific nobles, the ones who laughed in the throne room, the ones who whisper in corners. Lady Lyra is not a guest. She is not charity. She is not a symbol of Silverlake's defeat. His voice hardened. She solved the security breach that stumped my entire team. She corrected navigation charts that endangered lives for half a century. She calmed Stormbreaker when 3 trained handlers failed. Let them absorb that. Let them realize how many times they've underestimated her. The next person who disrespects Lady Lyra disrespects me directly. Simple, final. And you will find that I am no longer interested in being merciful about it. The threat hung in the air like a drawn blade. "Are we understood?" Silence. Then murmurs of "Yes, Mr. President" rippled through the crowd. Kael sat back down, reached for his wine as if nothing momentous had occurred. Conversations resumed, carefully, quietly, but everything had changed. Lyra sat motionless, Kael's jacket draped across her lap. It was warm from his body. It smelled like cedar and something uniquely him. Her eyes burned. Tears gathering but refusing to fall because she would not cry in front of these people. But her hand moved, slowly, deliberately. She placed it over Kael's where it rested on her chair. His fingers were rigid, locked. The moment her hand covered his, they relaxed, opened, curled around her hand with gentle firmness. "I'm here. You're safe. They can't touch you." All of it said without words. Lyra's breath shuddered out. Kael's thumb moved in a small circle on her hand. Once, twice. At the lower tables, a young noble started to whisper something. His companion's elbow caught him hard in the ribs, sharp headshake. The whisper died unspoken. The musicians resumed playing, a lively tune meant for dancing. Kael looked down at Lyra. His face was still hard, still carrying the edge of his threat to the court. But when his eyes met hers, something softened. "I should have done that weeks ago," he said quietly. "You did it when it mattered." Her voice matched his volume. "When I needed it." "You shouldn't have to need it," his jaw worked. "I'm sorry. For all of them. Don't apologize for them. That gives them power." She paused. "What you just did. No one has ever—" She couldn't finish. The words were too big. Gratitude and shock and something warm and terrifying growing in her chest like spring after endless winter. Oh. Oh no. She was falling in love with him. The realization hit like a physical blow. "Are you all right?" Kael noticed her sudden stillness. "Do you want to leave?" She should say yes. Should retreat somewhere safe to process this revelation in private. "No." Her voice was steadier than she felt. "I'm staying." His smile was fierce, proud. "Of course you are." They sat together at the high table, hands linked, his jacket covering her lap. The feast continued around them, but in the center of it all something had taken root, something neither expected, something that might just be strong enough to survive whatever came next. Chapter 7. The coup midnight had teeth. The throne room should have been empty, locked, dark, silent. Instead, torches burned in sconces, throwing violent shadows against marble columns. The massive doors stood open like a trap, waiting to spring. Kael entered with 6 of his personal security team, hand resting on his concealed weapon. "I don't like this," Captain Dane muttered, scanning shadows. "Neither do I." Kael's instincts, honed by years of corporate warfare turned literal, were screaming. Too convenient. The doors slammed shut behind them. Echo, reverberation, finality. Kael spun, weapon drawn in one fluid motion. His team mirrored him, fanning out in defensive formation. From the galleries above, from behind columns, from the shadows themselves, figures emerged. 20, 30, 40. Security personnel in Nightfang uniforms with unfamiliar faces. Mercenaries in tactical gear. And leading them, descending the platform stairs with a smile like poisoned honey, Lady Selene. She'd changed from her wine-stained gown into black, tactical clothing. Combat ready. Her hair was braided back severely. "Mr. President?" She made his title sound like mockery. "So good of you to accept my invitation." Beside her, another figure stepped into torchlight. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing body armor bearing the presidential seal. Marcus Blackwood, Kael's cousin. "Marcus?" Kael's voice could freeze blood. "I should have known." "You left me no choice, cousin." False regret painted across hard features. "Bringing that cripple into our house? Elevating her above actual patriots? You've become weak, distracted." "Weak?" Kael's laugh was sharp as breaking bone. "You wouldn't last 10 seconds against me in single combat." "Good thing I brought friends," Marcus gestured. The circle tightened. 40 armed operatives against 7. "Alpha, Mr. President," Captain Dane corrected himself. "I see them." Kael's mind catalogued positions, weapons, exits. "When I give the signal, you take the East Gallery." "No one's going anywhere." Selene descended the final steps, hand resting on her tactical knife. "Especially not to warn your little pet." Kael's weapon came up. "Touch her, and I'll paint these walls with your blood." "Touching words," Selene grinned. "But you're not in position to make threats. Neither are you." Kael's voice dropped into something primal, the predator beneath the president. "Fatal mistake, Selene." "Have I?" She tilted her head. "Marcus." Marcus raised his hand. They attacked. Chaos erupted. Kael met the first wave with controlled fury. His weapon fired, precise, devastating. The first mercenary went down. His hand-to-hand combat training took over. Elbow strike, weapon taken, used against its owner. His team formed a defensive unit around him. Captain Dane's strikes were brutal, efficient. Another guard took down 2 with tactical precision. But there were too many. For every operative that fell, 2 more pressed in. They didn't try to match Kael's skill. They swarmed, ropes looped around limbs. Not honorable combat, animal control tactics. Kael roared, throwing 2 men off their feet. His weapons skittered across marble. More ropes. His legs swept. He crashed to his knees, still fighting, still impossibly dangerous. It took 10 men to pin the president to his own throne room floor. Marcus approached carefully, staying out of reach. Not so mighty now. Kael's response was anatomically creative and profane. Selene laughed. "I like him better humbled." She stepped over a groaning mercenary, moving past the pinned president toward the platform, towards something else. In the chaos, no one noticed the small figure who'd entered through the servant's door, the entrance Lyra had learned to navigate, the one that didn't lock properly. She sat in her wheelchair at the base of the platform. Alone. The presidential jacket still draped across her lap. Selene saw her, stopped, smiled slowly. There she is. She drew her tactical knife. The president's distraction, the root of his weakness. She started walking, slow, savouring it. "Selene!" Kael's voice was raw, desperate. He thrashed against restraints, throwing 2 men off before they dragged him down again. "Don't, I swear, I'll kill you." "You'll do nothing." Marcus kicked Kael in the ribs. "Watch, cousin. Watch what happens to distractions." Lyra sat motionless, face pale, composed, hands hidden beneath the jacket. Selene climbed the platform steps. 5, 4, 3. "Nothing personal." Selene raised the knife. "Actually, no, it's entirely personal." 2 steps. "Any last words?" 1 step. Lyra looked past Selene, found Kael's eyes across the chaos. and smiled. Small, certain. Trust me. Her hands moved. The jacket fell away. Mounted to the leather case on her wheelchair arm, a crossbow, compact, custom-built, already loaded. The gift within the gift. Protection that meant providing tools, not just standing guard. Lyra's hand closed around the grip. Finger found the trigger with practiced ease. Selene saw it. Eyes went wide. She lunged, knife raised. Lyra fired. The bolt didn't aim to kill. It caught Selene's tactical sleeve and pinned it to the wooden throne arm behind her. The force jerked Selene backward. She stumbled, caught, the knife clattering away. The throne room froze. Every eye turned to the platform. Lyra's hands moved again. Smooth, efficient, terrifyingly calm. She loaded another bolt. Of course there were more. Of course Kael planned for contingencies, with practiced ease. The crossbow came up, aimed at centre mass. For real this time. I wouldn't. Lyra's voice cut through silence like a blade. Selene went absolutely still. Lyra's eyes swept the room. Found the mercenaries holding Kael. Found Marcus standing over his cousin. Found every traitor who'd dismissed her as furniture. When she spoke, her voice rang out clear and commanding. I am not his distraction. Each word carried weight. I am the strategy he heeds. I am the peace he protects. Her finger rested on the trigger. I am his, and he is mine. She paused. Let it sink in. Stand. Down. Total silence. Marcus laughed nervously. 1 bolt. You have 1 bolt and 40 men. I have 6 bolts. Lyra didn't look away from Selene. I reload in 4 seconds. At this range, I don't miss. Her voice hardened. I survived 3 days of torture without breaking. Do you really think I won't put a bolt through her heart? Marcus's laugh died. She's bluffing. Test me. Lyra's smile was cold. Please. Kael stopped struggling. He stared at Lyra with an expression caught between awe and something dangerously close to love. That was his moment. While every eye was on Lyra, Kael moved. His roar shook the rafters. Pure fury. He surged upward with impossible strength, throwing off restraints, his fist catching the nearest operative in the throat. For Night Fang, his battle cry echoed. For the Queen, his team rallied. Captain Dane rose despite his wounds. They formed up around their president. Kael fought like a man possessed, each strike precise, brutal, final. He reached Marcus in 4 strides. Their confrontation was brief. Kael was better, had always been better. On the 4th exchange, Kael's strike found Marcus's shoulder. The weapon fell from nerveless fingers. Kael's boot drove him to his knees. The remaining mercenaries saw their leader down, saw the president standing over him, saw Lyra on the platform with her crossbow trained on Selene. As one, they dropped their weapons. The clatter of steel on marble sounded like falling rain. It's over, Captain Dane's voice, rough but steady. We have them, Mr. President. Kael's weapon didn't waver from Marcus's throat. You attempted to overthrow your president. To stage a coup. Deadly quiet. Give me one reason I shouldn't end you here. The country needs strength. The country has strength. Kael's blade pressed closer. She's on that platform holding a crossbow, having just saved your president's life. All eyes turned to Lyra again. She hadn't moved, hadn't lowered the weapon. Selene, pinned to the throne, had tears streaming down her face. Please, Selene's voice cracked. I didn't mean... You meant exactly what you did. Lyra finally lowered the crossbow, slightly. But I'm not the one you should beg. Kael sheathed his weapon with finality. Secure them all. Maximum security detention. They face tribunal at dawn. Guards moved in. Chains rattled. Marcus went without fighting, shoulder bleeding, face defeated. Selene struggled against the bolt. A guard yanked it free. Her sleeve tore. Shackles closed around her wrists. You were nobility, Kael's voice followed her as she was dragged away. Now you're just a traitor. The throne room emptied. Prisoners removed, the loyal guards establishing perimeter, until finally, just Kael and Lyra. And wreckage. Kael stood in the center, breathing hard, blood from minor wounds dripping onto marble. His eyes found Lyra on the platform. She was shaking now. Adrenaline draining, leaving shock. Lyra. Soft, gentle. The crossbow slipped from her fingers. Her hands covered her face. A sob broke free, sharp, jagged. Kael was moving before the second sob. Up the platform, across marble, dropping to his knees before her wheelchair. His hands covered hers, pulling them gently from her face. You're safe. It's over. I could have missed if I'd... You didn't. His hands framed her face. You were perfect. I didn't know if I could, but you did. He was smiling despite the blood. You saved us. Saved me. Her laugh was half sob. You built me a crossbow. I gave you a choice. You chose to use it. That's all you. They stayed like that. King and strategist. Two people who found each other in war and built something worth defending. Outside, dawn began lightening the sky. But inside, kneeling in the shattered remains of a coup, Kael looked at Lyra like she was the sun rising.